I asked him, I'm like, let's assume, just hypothetically, we wanted to make this as an HBO show, as a TV show. What would that process look like? How complicated would it be? Because I've gone through now enough conversation with Uncharted and Last of Us that I've seen a lot of false starts. Um, so I had a lot of trepidation. And he was like, oh, it's very simple. We go across the street, we meet like Casey and Franny from HBO. We pitch them on this idea for this TV show, and then we make it. And 2 weeks later, that's exactly what happened.
Welcome to Third and Fairfax, the official podcast of the Writers Guild of America West. I'm your host, Brian Gary. In this episode, host Josephine Green Zhang talks with The Last of Us creators and showrunners Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann about crafting season 2 of the hit series, adapting the popular video game for television, advice to aspiring writers, and much more. Listen and subscribe to Third and Fairfax on Spotify, Apple, or Libsyn, and watch us on the Writers Guild of America West's YouTube channel. And now, here's Josephine in conversation with Craig and Neil.
All right. So my name's Josephine Green Zhang. I am one of the hosts of the WGAW podcast. So today I'm here with the Writers Guild of America West. And this is a little bit more of a process interview, to be honest. So, but I did see episode 201. Holy shit. Oh my God. So good. Epic.
Oh, you haven't seen Epic yet, my friend. That's the slow episode.
Ooh, well, okay. Beginning of Epic, Epic drawing. All the great bangers of HBO cast, by the way, like in the trailer. Which was viewed so many times. I don't have the number, but a gajillion times. A gajillion times. A gajillion majillion. And well, okay, I'm gonna start with some little basics. What's your meet cute? How'd you two meet? What's your your story of how this project, got started?
Well, here's how it got started. In 2013, I played The Last of Us, and I thought, man, I wish I could adapt this, but I probably won't ever get the chance. And I saw like, okay, there's this mysterious Neil Druckmann guy. He's in charge of it. And then I heard that he was, working on adapting it as a film, and all these years of sadness went by. And Shannon Woodward, who is a friend of mine who just does the voice of Dina in The Last of Us Part 2, I was like, oh my God, you're working on The Last of Us Part 2. What's Neil Druckmann like? And she said, you guys would love each other. And I was like, I'm sure that's true. It's like I sent him an email, never got an answer back. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm never going to know him. And then.
Oh, so, okay, on my side of things, there have been, The Last of Us became more successful than anyone imagined, the original video game. And there are a lot of people interested in adapting it. And there was a moment in time where we almost made it as a film. I'm glad we didn't, because this is a much better version of that story where we ended up. Shannon did introduce me to Craig, or gave him my email. And it was in this moment in time where a lot of people were just reaching out to me, wanting to meet. And I was just kind of tired of it. And I'm like, Shannon told me he's a nice guy. I'll meet with him at some other point. I was just tired. And then we got the rights back from the film version, and I heard that, I'd watched Chernobyl. And for my money, Chernobyl is one of the best TV shows ever. Not limited series, like best TV shows ever. I was so blown away by the writing, but just the tone of it. And I remember like fantasizing, like, oh man, imagine if the people who made this made The Last of Us. How cool would that be? Not knowing, I didn't put the connection. That's the guy that emailed me like months ago.
And he hit delete.
And then later I put that together, like, oh my God, it's the same guy. Yeah, of course I'm gonna meet him. I just want to gush. Honestly, when I went to meet Craig for lunch, I just wanted to gush about Chernobyl. I had no ulterior motives. And then we started talking about it, and I get the sense like, oh, he actually really loves The Last of Us. And no, he's talking about weird, tiny details that only people that have played it more than once would pick up on. So in this lunch that we're having at Daily Grill, wherever that was, next to Naughty Dog, I asked him, I'm like, let's assume, just hypothetically, we wanted to make this as an HBO show, as a TV show. what would that process look like? How complicated would it be? Because I've gone through now enough conversation with Uncharted and Last of Us that I've seen a lot of false starts. So I had a lot of trepidation. And he was like, oh, it's very simple. We go across the street, we meet like Casey and Franny from HBO. We pitch them on this idea for this TV show, and then we make it. And 2 weeks later, that's exactly what happened.
Oh my God, that's
Easy.
easy,
Now, I
easy.
don't know all this stuff that happened behind the scenes. I'm just like, my perspective. I walked in this meeting. Craig is the one that pitched the story of The Last of Us, a pitch that I've done a million times. And I just got to sit there and listen. And again, I had more evidence of how much this guy loved the game, that from memory, he could pitch it from beginning to end with all the nuance of all the relationship, talking about the DLC that we made with Left Behind, Ellie's relationship with Riley. And then we stood up, we all shook hands, and we said, we're making this show. And I still didn't believe it. And then it was so fast of how we just got to writing to and then making it. Now we're here talking about season 2.
That's wonderful. I feel like I'm interviewing Sari and Harry and Sally.
I want to be Sally.
I want to be Sally.
No,
Oh.
so you do Sally and Sally.
Well, you guys dug in a little bit about your pitch. So how was the pitch? Like, was it 20 minutes? Did you use visuals? Like, did you just like, what was that process?
I got to tell you, I'm old school. I don't bring a deck. I don't bring visuals. I think if you can, not everybody can do it this way, but I like to, when I pitch things, I like to pitch them as if I've already watched the show or the movie and I love it. And I want to share with you how passionate I am about it and why. And part of that means understanding which moments matter. It's less about plot, 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 plot. It's more about those moments and all of it focused through relationship. One thing about HBO is they are so supportive of creators, well, no surprise when things go well. So Chernobyl went well. And Casey Blois, who runs HBO, said to me, the next thing you do should be something that makes you levitate. And I came to him and I said, Casey, because, there are rights involved, obviously, for any sort of, like, Casey, buy this for me, please. Daddy, buy me The Last of Us. I need it. I need it. I need it. I need it. Please, 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 please. Good news is Casey loves genre. He got excited just at the thought of zombies. And I was like, zombies are just the start. Let's get into why this is actually an HBO show as opposed to not. And that's about the complexity of the characters and the moral dilemmas and the beauty of their relationship and the pain and the heartache. And I walk through all the things that I care about. And I think in a way it was almost, sometimes I think it might almost be frustrating for them because they think, oh yeah, we do want to make this, but my God, that's going to cost a lot of money. And it did. And it's a huge swing for them to make, huge, especially adapting a video game, which was kind of the thing everybody knew you shouldn't do. And they just put their faith behind us. I cannot thank them enough. And I'm so happy that it was rewarded and we get to keep going.
Can you talk a little bit about the biggest challenges of adapting video game to screen and like how do you decide what stays the same, what's different, especially coming from season 1 to season 2?
I'll go back before we even work on a single creative choice is, again, now I've had enough experience of meeting a bunch of people that are interested in adapting it, but seeing the various reasons why they would be wrong to adapt it. Sometimes they're fans of the game, but they just don't get what it's about. Or sometimes, they're not the right talent or just tonally they're not at the right place. I would say one of the most important things that this experience has taught me is find someone who loves it as much as you do. And that's Craig Mazin. It all starts from there. And because if you start with that at the top, then every other person we hire, we kind of gauge of like, what's their reaction to the material? Like if it's an actor, how much should they react to this character? How much should they get it? How much would they be willing to throw themselves at it? So all those early decisions, starting from that, allowed us to surround us with incredibly talented people that want to do the best version of the story. And many of them are fans of the game. Many of them came to this show because they loved what the game made them feel. So in some ways, to me, that was the biggest challenge, is finding those partners. And And then there's a million other challenges that come afterward, but I'll pause there and let you take over.
They're all good writing challenges. We have the benefit of this source material, but and Neil is amazing about this because a lot of times the creators of source material are a problem. I'll just be honest, as screenwriters, when you're adapting things, sometimes you run into a novelist who just can't handle the fact that moving from one medium to another, it's not even requires changes. It gives you the opportunity to expand. And sometimes because you are doing episodes with beginnings and ends, things need to adjust. Also, honestly, you have the benefit of the source material, so you can say, hey, here's a way of doing something in the source material that might actually be more compelling, given the fact that we have these opportunities. Neil is incredible about focusing on making the best show. So there's not any ego there about, well, but the game did it this way. I think we're both really good about saying, hey, this part of the game, let's port because it is portable. It just works. And then other parts, I mean, as I've learned from Neil, how certain story elements are specific in the game to make them playable. When you are over on a show and you're not playable, and especially you're not locked into one perspective, then you have opportunities to do things in a different way. We, I think what we did really well in season one was follow our hearts as creator and fan. And for people who were fans of the game, and listen, video game fans, like any fandom, they're intense and they are passionate, and I always think of, like that character from Wayne's World, like, I don't like change. Yeah, I don't like change either. Like I see things adapted. I'm like, do the thing. But they welcomed the changes because I think they saw in large part how much they were in the spirit of what the game was. And sometimes people will say this scene was just like, they just pulled this from the game and did it 1-to-1 and it's awesome. And I'm like, that scene's not in the game, but it felt like it was in the game. And that's awesome.
It's like one of those sleeper memories that are fake, that you created.
Yes, Inception.
Yeah, you incepted it. Off that about learning, skills, what do you each feel like because they always say like writers, you write to learn something. What do you feel like you learned from writing seasons 1 and 2?
Oh, I have someone close to me that always tells me, you have the most expensive therapy known to mankind. I mean, it's such an exploration of the first game in season 1 for me was really an exploration about the unconditional love a parents feel for their child. Hold on 1 second, there's some noise here. I remember the kind of sacrifices my parents made for me. And I remember at times how my parents have lied to me in order to protect me and how it was traumatizing in many ways. And later I've come to understand their motivations were good, even if the result was bad. And the relation between Joel and Ellie, I really try to explore those things, those feelings I've had. In Last of Us Part 2, the beginning of which was some of the darkest feelings I've had as far as violence or retribution, and wanting to have a story that really explored all the facets of that, even the parts that made me really uncomfortable. And I think, those are some of the earliest conversations Craig and I had about, okay, what is the story about? Where is the story going? What ultimately are we trying to say with the story? Because then the way we work, we reverse engineer everything from there and build these relationships and these characters that eventually lead us to these philosophical arguments.
I mean, for me, it's really everything Neil said is a huge part of what we learn, and drawing from those main themes. There is a technical aspect of growth that I felt, and it was because I got a chance to be with Pedro and Bella for so long. And what happens is you begin to write with an awareness of how they work. You don't want to necessarily chase their performances and think, oh, I'm just going to repeat this or this. But you do learn, hey, you know what? Bella can express this without so many words. Pedro can convey this without any words. So you start to shape how you write, particularly dialogue to them. One of the things that I do, I guess, again, a technical writing thing is a lot of times I will put the dialogue that they shouldn't say, but they should feel in action, in italics. So they can see what they're thinking, but they know they don't have to say it. And it is, I find, extraordinarily helpful for all of us because what I think early on, you spend a lot of time, particularly as a director, saying, okay, here's what I want you to be rolling around in your head before this moment occurs. Well, that's all there. So there's not a lot of questions. It's pretty rare for one of them to come up and say, why am I saying this? Because it's there. And trying to push as much into subtext as possible, I think, is when you have actors like Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal, and now we have Caitlin Dever and Isabella Merced and Young Mazzino and Gabe Luna, all of them are, and Catherine O'Hara, Jeffrey Wright. Let them do what they do. Feed them the things you want them to know. Don't require it all to come out of their mouth.
That's brilliant. And okay, so getting into the nitty-gritty, just some logistics, like what is it? What's your process? Do you guys like email? Oh, I have 3 minutes. Okay. I have two quickies, but do you guys like email each other? Did you have 6 weeks? Did you have 12 weeks? Do you like,
We take the time we need, and we talk to each other constantly. I mean, not email takes too damn long, and we're two garrulous Jews.
I guess quick thoughts. If it's like a yes or no thing, that's fine for an email. Anything bigger than that,
Yeah.
it's just easier to talk
I
to
just
each
pick
other.
up the phone. He picks up the phone. We're like, I have an idea. I have a problem. What do I do? A lot of times when I'm writing, because I like to just be alone in a windowless room when I'm writing, but then I'll get to a point where I'm like, Neil, I'm stumped. I think this should happen. I'm not sure. And we figure it out. I'll write a script. I'll send it to him. We go through it, and he's like, this, I don't know because of this and this. And then one of the things that we sort of just marry ourselves to is if we disagree about something, let's just agree that we're going to agree about something. We're never going to just like, well, one of us won. We get to something oftentimes that wasn't either of those choices, but is better, that we love.
Yeah, we have to get behind every single choice. Some that tension, I think, often leads to like a new choice that's every time better.
Yeah.
It just takes time. There are no shortcuts, and we have to just wrestle with the ideas, leave our egos at the door, and just then look at all the options in front of us and to say, which one is not necessarily the coolest, which ones gets us closer to our vision of the emotional truth of what this episode or the season or ultimately this show is about.
That's wonderful. Okay, if I have time, I just have a rapid round real quick.
Yep.
Favorite zombie movie or TV show or both?
28 Days Later.
I'm going to go Dawn of the Dead, original.
Favorite candy or snack, could be salty or sweet, in a movie theater?
Oh, Milk Duds.
Nestle Crunch.
Job you'd have if you weren't a writer?
Comic book artist.
Oh, nice. Doctor.
Ooh. Job you'd have in a zombie apocalypse?
I would not have a job. I would be absolutely destroyed within minutes.
I was going to say body.
Yeah, exactly. I think my job would be zombie.
Okay, I have a cheeky question, but where do you think women get their makeup in the apocalypse?
Oh, I think about that all the time, actually. That's a great question. So there are things, here's what I am obsessed with. In the apocalypse, what gets looted really quickly and what doesn't? So early on, people are going to be going for food, medicine,
Clothes.
even clothes, probably like some clothes, but not a ton of clothes. And then okay, the apocalypse happens. Now there's not a lot of people left. You find a Walmart. What was kind of left there? Probably a ton of makeup. There's probably a lot of makeup because nobody was thinking, oh, I got to just do my eyeliner before the zombies come. So you can actually gather a lot of that stuff. Clothes, makeup, things that were abandoned and left because people were just shipped away or running away. But food and medicine, those are trickier to find.
That's true. That's true. And then you'd probably be able to make it.
Mhm.
And in the times of early talkies, people would steal the makeup from when they took it from, they'd steal it from the makeup artist on
Yeah,
set.
why not?
And one last question is, I heard Werner Herzog gave the advice for aspiring writers to work in a sex club as a bouncer, like basically go out and get real experience. What are your thoughts? What would be your advice for people either getting into video game writing and TV writing? The process.
Do not work in a sex club as a bouncer. Seems like a horrible idea. And I don't know why. I don't know how that would help. But he is Werner Herzog. He's awesome. What's your advice?
I think everybody has lived enough of a life to tell some kind of story. But I guess you just kind of keep learning, keep educating yourself, keep finding those new experiences, whether it's at a sex club or not, and then just write what you're drawn to, what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of cliche, but that's the truth.
Yeah, and also don't take advice on what you should do, because Werner Herzog did what Werner Herzog needed to do, and boy, did he nail it. That is not what I needed to do. We are all different. We all have our fingerprint. And the most important thing, if you're starting out, whether you're trying to get into video games or writing for television or movies, is know who you are and know what you can do that is different from everybody else. Because if you're just trying to do what we do, we're already doing it. We got that covered. So just you go be you and you'll be fine.
100, 200%. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Neil. What an awesome interview. Cannot wait till April 13th for the world to see season 2. Congratulations. And thanks for being our guest today.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Third and Fairfax. You can listen and subscribe to Third and Fairfax on Spotify, Apple, and Libsyn, and watch us on the Writers Guild of America West's YouTube channel. If you like this episode or have a comment, email us at podcast@wga.org. Also check out writtenby.com, the Guild's online publication, for more on writer craft, career, and union life. And see you next time.